The wind howls across the Judean desert like the cry of a dying legion. At the edge of the Dead Sea, a solitary mountain rises from the sand like a broken crown. Masada. The name alone carries 10 centuries of defiance, blood, and silence. In 73 AD, 960 Jewish Zealots held this fortress against 3 Roman legions for 3 brutal years. When the ramp was finally completed and the legions breached the walls, they found only bodies. Rather than surrender, the defenders chose death on their own terms. Today, the Israel Defense Forces maintains a small armored corps training base on the western plateau of Masada. Barracks, motor pool, classrooms, and a memorial built directly over the Roman ramp. Young tank crewmen from the 7th and 188th Armored Brigades still swear in here under the same sun that once baked Roman shields and Zealot spears. Most nights are quiet. Some are not. Since 2018, multiple platoons have reported the same impossible things. Boots marching in perfect Roman cadence when no one is on the parade square. Voices speaking Latin and ancient Hebrew drifting from the old casemate wall. The smell of burning pitch at Oro 300 when nothing is on fire. And shadows in Centurion armor standing watch on a ridgeline that hasn't been manned in 2,000 years. The IDF does not officially acknowledge the paranormal, but the soldiers who sleep in those barracks do. Tonight, you're going to hear from 5 of them. Tank commanders, drivers, gunners, and 1 very shaken company commander. All from different units, different years, same mountain. These are their words, recorded within weeks of the events. Names and call signs changed for privacy. This is what happens when you build a modern military base on a place that never stopped fighting. Welcome to the haunted barracks of Masada. Let's drop the hammer. Chapter 1. The Ramp at Zoro 300. My name is Staff Sergeant Rami M., loader in a Merkava Mark IV of the 188th Barak Brigade. I had been at the Masada Armored Training Base exactly 9 days when the mountain introduced itself. The barracks we sleep in are built straight into the northern casemate wall of the ancient fortress. My rack is the bottom bunk under a narrow slit window that looks west directly down the Roman siege ramp. 2,000 years ago, the 10th Legion stacked those stones one by one under arrow fire so they could roll a battering ram to the wall. At night, the ramp is lit only by moonlight and the orange glow of the perimeter floods. The stones still look black from the fires the Zealots rained down on them. That night, the base was almost empty. A VIP ceremony had shipped every other unit down to the plains, leaving only our platoon, 15 tired tankers fresh from junior command course. Lights out was 2200. I crashed hard. I woke needing to piss. The room was dead quiet, not even the usual generator drone. I sat up, rubbed my eyes, and heard boots on gravel. Slow, heavy, perfectly spaced. Not the soft shuffle of combat boots. These were nailed soles striking stone in exact rhythm, the way Roman caligae bite into ground. I figured the guard was doing an extra round. I leaned to the slit window and looked out. 20 figures, maybe more, were marching up the siege ramp in single file. Short crimson tunics, oval scuta slung on their left arms, bronze glinting on their helmets. The lead man wore the transverse horsehair crest of a centurion. They climbed the 15-degree slope like it was flat parade ground, shields swinging in perfect time. Moonlight slid across polished muscle cuirasses and the short gladi at their hips. I blinked hard, told myself it was a trick of heat and exhaustion. They kept coming. When the centurion reached the coiled razor wire that marks our perimeter, he stopped, raised his sword in a slow, formal salute toward the barracks. The entire file halted behind him as one man. Then they pivoted with parade ground precision and marched back down the ramp. By the time they reached the wadi bed, they were simply gone. I checked my watch. 7 minutes had passed. I grabbed my taver, ran barefoot to the duty room. The 2 guys on guard were staring at blank thermal screens. Nothing on camera, Rami. Motion sensors didn't even burp. Both of them looked pale enough to need transfusions. At first light, the company commander called me in. He spun his laptop around and played drone footage from the exact time code. The ramp is empty. Just dust devils and the slow blink of perimeter lights. I know what I saw. The next night, it spoke. I was back in the same bunk, trying to pretend the first night never happened, when the window lit up faint red, like someone had switched on a battle lamp outside. A voice came through the slit, low and formal, the way senior officers speak when they don't need to raise their voice. Rami ben Avraham, Latin, but I understood every syllable. My full name, the old Hebrew way my grandfather used. I sat up so fast I cracked my head on the upper bunk. The red glow was gone. The ramp was empty again. I didn't sleep for the rest of the week. Some places keep fighting long after the last bullet is fired. Masada never lowered its flag. It just changed the men holding it. And sometimes, when the wind comes down off the mountain just right, those men come back to check the guard posts they died defending. I finished my rotation there 3 months ago. I still wake up some nights tasting dust and hearing nailed boots on stone. The ramp is still waiting. So are they. Chapter 2. Cold Spot on the Glacis. My name is Sergeant First Class Leora E., Gunner, Merkava Mark 4M, 7th Sayar Brigade. People think tankers are loud, cocky, half-deaf from turbines. They're not wrong. But inside a buttoned-up Merkava at night in the Judean desert, you hear everything. Every breath, every heartbeat, every whisper the desert wants to slide through the cracks. We were running a night live fire package on the range. Below Masada, 4 tanks, full combat load, shooting illumination, and heat MP at silhouette targets on the wadi floor. My crew was Aleph 11. The intercom had been acting up all week. Random bursts of static, like someone keying a mic far away. Third fire mission. I'm on the gunner's seat. Primary sight locked on a T-55 Hulk at 2,800 meters. Commander calls fire. I squeeze, and the main gun slams back. Right then, the intercom clears. No static, no turbine whine drops to nothing, and a man's voice comes through my headset as clear as if he's sitting on my lap. Return the vessels of the house of God. Not Hebrew like we speak it. Older, slower. The way a priest reads from the Torah on Yom Kippur. I thought it was the platoon net bleeding over. I keyed up. Say again. Command. Silence. 10 seconds later, the same voice. Patient. Almost sad. The flame does not die. Then the thermal sight went black. Not a flicker, not a failure code. Just black, like someone yanked the power cable. The commander starts yelling, driver cursing, loader slamming rounds into the ready rack by feel. I rip off the headset and look up through the gunner's periscope. There's a man standing on the glacis plate, right in front of the barrel. White linen tunic, leather straps crisscrossing his chest, long beard, hair tied back with a simple cord. In his belt is a curved Sika dagger. He's staring straight down the periscope tube at me, not through the glass. At me. His eyes are black, endless, like the Dead Sea at noon. I screamed. I've never screamed on a tank before. He raises his right hand, palm open, fingers together, the old priestly blessing. Then the thermal snaps back on, bright and normal. The figure is gone. We finished the shoot somehow. When we rolled back up the switchback to the base, the tank stank of smoke. Not cordite or diesel, but thick, sweet smoke, like the incense they burn in synagogues on the high holidays. It clung to our uniforms for days. Later, the commander downloaded the panoramic sight footage. 4 Merkavas, desert floor, lit by Ilum rounds, and for exactly 6 seconds, a cold spot. Human-shaped void standing on our front hull. The computer registered it as 0 degrees Celsius, while the rest of the tank was 45. We never spoke about it again inside the turret. Tankers don't do ghosts, but every time I traverse the gun across that same wadi, the turret smells like temple incense for a second or two. And sometimes, when the intercom crackles, I swear I hear him breathing, waiting for us to bring back whatever it is we took. The mountain doesn't forget, and neither does he. Chapter 3. The Burning Centurion. My name is Lieutenant Nadav G., Platoon Leader, 401st Iron Tracks Brigade. I don't believe in ghosts. I believe in grid squares, threat bearings, and keeping my crews alive. That's what I told myself the night the mountain set a Roman on fire and sent him walking. We were deployed on Masada for a 48-hour defensive exercise. My 4 tanks were hull down along the western edge, turrets covering the approaches from the Roman ramp. At 2:15, the entire platoon net lit up at once. Contact West Ridge, single figure, appears to be on fire. Every commander reported the same thing. I popped my hatch. Cold desert air hit my face, and there he was. A lone man walking the exact ridgeline where Legio X Fretensis once parked their ballistae. Flames rolled off him from helmet to ankles, bright orange, steady, no smoke. He moved at patrol pace, slow and deliberate, like he was inspecting positions. The silhouette was unmistakable. Montefortino helmet, with tall horsehair crest burning like a torch, muscled cuirass, glowing red-hot rectangular scutum held at port arms. I grabbed the thermal monocular. Nothing. Empty ridge. I lowered it, and he was still there, plain as day to the naked eye. He walked the entire length of the old Roman artillery terrace, maybe 400 meters. Then he stopped directly opposite our position, turned to face the base, and raised his right arm. Not a wave. A deliberate point, straight at the Israeli flag snapping above the parade square. The flames flared white-hot for a second, then snuffed out like someone closed a furnace door. The ridge was dark. The smell that rolled down the slope was cooked meat, olive oil, and hot iron. We sat in silence for a long time. Then my gunner whispered, "Sir, the fire control computer just logged a new target." I climbed down into the turret. The screen showed a fresh entry, time stamped to the second the figure vanished. Target Masada defenders. Grid exact coordinates of our 4 tanks. Class unknown status hostile. That designation does not exist in the Merkava's threat library. Someone or something typed it in from inside the system. We drove back to the barracks at dawn. The tanks reeked of that smell for 2 days. Every time we shut down the engines, the turret fans pulled it in deeper. I filed the report up the chain. Got a one-line reply from Brigade Intelligence. Known atmospheric phenomenon at Masada. Continue training. I still have the screenshot of the fire control log. Sometimes when I'm alone in the turret running diagnostics, the screen flickers and that same target line reappears for half a second before the system wipes it. He's still walking that ridge. Still pointing. Chapter 4. The Child Who Drew the Lot. My name is Corporal Yonatan S., Driver 7th Brigade. I'm the guy who spends more time under the tank than in it, so I'm used to being alone with the desert at weird hours. But nothing prepared me for the night I met the kid who never made it off the mountain. It was Sukkot week. Most of the base had gone on leave. Only a handful of us stayed behind to finish maintenance before the next course. One night, I finished bleeding the final drive around Or 130 and started walking back along the old casemate wall. The path is narrow, lit by low amber lamps that barely push back the dark. Halfway down, I heard crying. Small, broken sobs, the kind an 8- or 9-year-old makes when he's trying not to be heard, but can't stop. I followed the sound to casemate 12th strain, one of the long rooms the Zealots turned into cisterns. The iron door has been welded shut since the 1960s. Archaeologists say the floor is unstable, but the crying was definitely coming from inside. I put my phone light to the ventilation grate. Dust floated in the beam, and there he was. A boy in a dirty white tunic sitting cross-legged on the stone floor, bare feet, soot streaks on his cheeks, black hair down to his shoulders. He was holding a pottery shard in both hands, turning it over and over like it was the most important thing in the world. He looked up at me, eyes too old for his face. "They made us draw lots," he said in perfect, soft Hebrew. 10 names each time. I didn't want to die, but my name came out anyway. His voice didn't echo. It just arrived inside my head. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. I just stared. He stood up, still clutching the shard, and walked toward the back wall. When he reached the stone, he didn't stop. He stepped into it the way you step through a curtain, and the crying cut off like someone pulled a plug. I ran all the way to the duty room. The sergeant on shift thought I'd seen a hyena. 2 days later, a university archaeology team doing routine survey work asked permission to open 1213. They found one thing: a child's leather sandal, right foot, perfectly preserved, size for an 8-year-old. Carbon dated to between 70 and 73 AD. Inside the sandal, scratched into the sole with a sharp stone, was a single word in ancient Hebrew: Gorel, Lot. They sealed the room again the same afternoon. Now, when the wind moves down the casemate corridor at night, you can sometimes hear small bare feet running and that same soft voice counting. 1, 2, 3. He's still drawing lots, and the mountain is still keeping score. Chapter 5. Legio X on the parade square. My name is Sergeant Major Rezer Zaitan K., Company 1st Sergeant, 401st Brigade. I've done more reserve weeks on Masada than I can count. I thought I'd seen every trick the mountain wind and boredom can play on soldiers. Then came the night the entire parade square belonged to Legio Ex Fretensis again. It was a quiet Thursday in early spring. One training company, 80 guys plus cadre, lights out at 22:30. I was bunked in the cadre room at the end of the block so I could be first to the door if someone screamed. At exactly 0400, the screaming started. Not one kid, all of them. 80 voices at once. I was out of my cot and in the corridor in seconds. Every light in the building was on, every soldier standing at the foot of his bed at attention like it was morning roll call. Eyes wide, mouths open, but nobody moving a muscle. Then I heard it. Boots. Hundreds of them. Striking the concrete parade square in perfect unison. Left, 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 right, left. The old Roman cadence, the one you can still hear in reenactment videos. Only this was real, sharp, close enough to feel in my chest. I ran to the main door and threw it open. The square was full. Rank upon rank of legionaries, 6 cohorts deep, shields locked, pila grounded, red cloaks hanging motionless in dead calm air. Their helmets caught the floodlights like wet blood. At the front stood a single aquilifer holding the eagle standard high. The eagle's wings were spread, and the gold flashed every time the column marked time. A voice barked from the right flank, harsh Latin, the kind of command that doesn't ask twice. Legio, Decima, Fretensis, ad signa. Every shield slammed against every thigh at the exact same instant. The crack rolled off the mountain like artillery. I stood there in socks and PT shorts, mouth dry, trying to remember how to breathe. Then the aquilifer lowered the eagle in a slow, deliberate salute toward the Israeli flag flying over the square. The entire formation pivoted 90 degrees to face it. Another command, quieter this time, almost conversational. Prosedite. They marched forward, straight toward the flagpole. 20 meters, 10, 5. When the front rank reached the pole, they didn't slow. They walked through the pole, through the concrete, through the ground itself, and vanished row by row into the stone of the mountain. The boots stopped. The lights flickered once and steadied. 80 soldiers dropped to their knees or just folded straight to the floor like someone cut their strings. I checked every camera feed later. Not a single frame showed anything except empty concrete and the flag snapping in a wind that never touched the rest of us. The next morning, the company commander tried to run morning formation on the same square. The second the guys formed up, every single one of them started shivering. Medics took temperatures, 35.2 degrees C across the board. Hypothermia in the desert at sunrise. We moved formation to the helicopter pad after that. Some places don't share their ground. They just remind you, once in a while, who it really belongs to. Chapter 6. The Night the Flag Burned Blue. My name is Captain Ahmed R., company commander of the 460th Brigade's training company. I have commanded tanks in Lebanon and Gaza. I have lost soldiers. I have never lost an entire company to something I cannot put in an after-action report. 8 months ago, we brought on 120 brand-new tank crewmen to Masada for their beret ceremony at sunrise, the proudest tradition in the Armored Corps. The night before the swearing-in, the whole company was bedded down in the long northern barracks. At SO 258, every single one of them woke up at the same instant. Not sat up groggy, woke up, eyes open, hearts racing, like someone had injected adrenaline straight into their veins. I know the exact minute because every smartwatch and phone in the building logged the same spike. Then the chanting began. It came from inside the walls themselves. Left side of the room, Latin deep male voices in perfect unison. Right side, Hebrew, men and women together, the same words the Zealots must have sung on their last night. Latin, Legio Decima Fretensis. Prosedite, Prosedite, advance, advance. Hebrew, Lo Tipol, Masada Shanit. Masada shall not fall again. The temperature plummeted. Frost bloomed on the inside of the windows in seconds. Breath hung in clouds. The overhead fluorescent lights dimmed to brown and then died, along with every phone screen, every emergency light, every red exit sign. In the sudden dark, the chanting grew louder, closer, until it felt like the voices were standing between the bunks. I grabbed my rifle and ran for the company office at the end of the corridor. The Israeli flag that hangs on the wall was burning, but not with normal fire. Cold blue flame, silent, licking upward without heat, spelling letters across the concrete floor in ancient Hebrew script. They are still here. The letters glowed for 10 full seconds, then collapsed into ash. At just 300 exactly, the lights snapped back on. The temperature returned to normal so fast the frost turned to water and ran down the windows like tears. The chanting stopped mid-word. Every soldier in the barracks, all 120 of them, had the same mark on his or her left forearm, a perfect circle the size of a Roman denarius, red and raised, like a fresh brand. Medics called it mass psychogenic response. The burn marks lasted exactly 9 days and vanished without scarring. I put in an urgent transfer request the same morning. Battalion denied it with a single line. Officer with Masada experience required for continuity. I am still here. Sometimes when I walk the barracks alone after lights out, the flag on the wall never burned, not physically, but if I stare long enough, I can still see those blue letters glowing faintly in the dark. The siege never ended. The mountain just changed uniforms. And every new course that comes through those gates is another wave of recruits for an army that has been fighting the same battle for 2,000 years. We are not the first. We will not be the last. Chapter 7. They Never Left the Wall. My name is Sergeant Gal M., 7th Brigade, and I pulled the last guard shift anyone ever wants on Masada. Lone Tower Guard, Oro 200/600, Western Perimeter, the stretch that overlooks the Roman ramp and the old Northern Gate. You stand in a concrete pillbox built right into the casemate wall. One chair, one taver, one thermal scope, one thermos of coffee that goes cold in 5 minutes. The mountain is so quiet you can hear your own pulse. I'd done the shift a dozen times before. That night felt different from the moment I climbed the ladder. The air tasted metallic, like right before a lightning strike. The floodlights on the ramp flickered once and steadied, but the shadows they threw looked wrong, too sharp, too tall. At 0230, I heard the relief coming early. Boots on the metal stairs behind me. Slow, measured. I turned to acknowledge, already pissed that someone was breaking protocol, and the stairwell was empty. The boots kept climbing. When they reached the landing, they stopped. I felt the presence step into the tower beside me, close enough that my skin prickled. I swung the rifle up. Nothing there, but the chair creaked as weight settled into it. I forced myself to look out the firing slit again. 2 sentries were standing on the wall exactly where the Zealots once posted their watch. One in a white tunic and leather cap, long spear across his shoulders. The other in full Roman lorica segmentata, red cloak hanging motionless, helmet tucked under his arm like he was off duty. They were staring down the ramp together, side by side, as if the last 2,000 years had never happened. They didn't speak. They didn't move. They just watched the darkness like it might attack at any second. I stood frozen for 3 full hours. Every time I blinked, they were still there. At Oro 530, the sky behind the Moab mountains started going pale. The Roman put his helmet back on, slow and deliberate. The Zealot leaned his spear against the stones. They turned to face each other, nodded once, almost respectfully, and walked in opposite directions along the wall. By the time the sun cleared the ridge, they were gone. I climbed down, shaking so hard I dropped the thermos. When my boots hit the ground, I saw them. 3 fresh Roman pila, leaning against the outside of the tower, iron heads still bright, ashwood shafts brand new. No rust, no desert dust, no serial numbers, just leaning there, like someone had set them ready for morning inspection. I took photos. By the time the relief actually showed up at 0600, the pila had vanished. The photos on my phone were black rectangles, memory corrupted. That was my last night on Masada. I put in my report. The intelligence officer read it, closed the folder, and said, "Welcome to the watch, Sergeant. You're on the permanent roster now." Some walls never come off duty. Some sentries never get relieved. They're still up there, Roman and Zealot together, keeping the same vigil they started in 73 AD. And every so often, when the new soldiers arrive with their shiny berets and loud voices, the mountain lets them stand a shift alongside the originals, just so we never forget who really holds this ground.